Hey everyone, quick video today on investing and investing risk management. Um, let's see here. So, basically, big banks, big institutions, big hedge funds, all of them now in the 2020s, in the Western world, are focused on really good risk management. Not in the sense that their risk management is good, but they're trying to have a robust risk management framework. What that means is they're trying to understand how their balance sheet, right, meaning their assets and liabilities, and how their income statement, meaning their net, net income, meaning their revenue and their expenses, how those two main things, those two kind of main documents, I would say, periodic documents like quarterly, monthly, you do a balance sheet, and you calculate your income. um, they're trying to see how those things would change depending on potential negative changes in the world. What does that mean? What the heck does that mean? What's a negative change in the world? Well, stocks dropping, gold dropping, real estate dropping, unemployment increasing, disasters, weather disasters, political unrest, idiosyncratic situations, severe idiosyncratic situations, like an earthquake in California, or a hurricane for cities on the Gulf, or some kind of potentially a terrorist attack in all major metropolitan areas. Those kind of potential idiosyncratic events could occur, and banks that have broad exposure, financial institutions that have broad exposure, investment funds, big institutions that are doing things with money, they care. They care deeply, right? Deeply about how their world, how their lives, meaning their balance sheet and their income statement, would change if these negative situations, these really bad things, right, come to fruition. How will they change? Probably not in a good way, right? Most of the time, if everything drops, you're not gonna do well. But what if not everything drops at the same time? What if one thing drops at one time, something increases? There's different scenarios you can have. So there's different negative outcomes that could come to fruition in the future world. And so these firms are trying to understand how their world is going to be affected. Basically, you can do the same thing in your own life. After a certain point, after your life gets sophisticated enough in terms of finances, so like say you have just one E-Trade account, doesn't matter much. But say you have a couple of 401ks, you have a couple of crypto accounts, maybe have an E-Trade account, a Robinhood account, maybe you have some nice watches that you're collecting, maybe you have some real estate, maybe you have a bunch of credit card debts, a personal loan, you have debt on your house, maybe you have another investment property or two, maybe on those properties you have debt as well, maybe you have lines of credit. So there's a lot of things that can be at play, right? And as you grow as a human being, as you grow as a participant in Western capitalist economies, and you do well, and you're lucky enough, you have to be lucky enough, you will control more things, and you'll generally control more assets, and things will be more complex. Now, if you approach it from or in a bad place, an incorrect way, things will be complicated and anxiety producing for you. They won't You won't have a good understanding of your finances, in the same way you had when you were in college, when you just had a checking account and maybe a crypto account, or maybe when you just started your first job, when you had a checking, a savings, and a brokerage account and a 401k. Those are pretty easy to manage. But 10 credit cards, a personal loan, some lines of credit, mortgages, and then assets spread over a wide array of places, that's not easy to understand in your mind. You need to use tools, meaning proper tools, proper technology like Excel or other tools. There's tons of tools. I'm not going to go into that on this episode. There's tons of ways to do it. I may talk about that in the future. Excel has advantages. There's some proprietary tools that are just built for purpose. I personally, yeah, I mean, everyone has their own approach. I like a more Excel based approach because it lets me kind of track things the way I want to track them, and instead of be having to tailor everything to a certain approach that a company kind of wants me to use, just because their designers and their UI people and their programmers decided to approach it a certain way for a specific type of client. But that's kind of besides the point. So if you track your finances, so if you don't track them, you can't do anything. I'm gonna say can't do any of it because you have no capability to do it. Your capability is zero in terms of tracking. In terms of stress testing, which is what I'm going to talk about. Basically, if it's always in your head, if whenever you want to know how much money you have and what your financial situation is, you have to calculate everything from scratch, it's going to be tough. But if you have everything on the computer, what you could do is you could do really prudent, really robust, really serious investing risk management. Now, again, as I've said before, this isn't financial advice. No responsibility towards you. This is purely infotainment. And don't be a moron. Please don't be a moron if you're watching this channel. Don't take advice from me or anyone online. Purely entertainment, informational entertainment, infotainment. So you could stress test your portfolio, just like the big banks, just like the big players, just like the sophisticated guys, just like the elites. You can do the same thing to learn more about your portfolio. And this is the important part, to learn more about your portfolio and to learn how your portfolio will change, to learn how your portfolio, how your overall financial picture, everything, how that'll change depending on how things change in the future, depending on how stocks go, depending on how all kinds of things go. Now, you may not get as sophisticated as a huge fund. You're not going to have a way to input the unemployment rate into your model, right? If you have an Excel file with all your with the entire balance sheet with all your assets and liabilities, how is the unemployment rate going to impact you? Doesn't besides you, the potential of you losing your job, I mean, how is it going to impact you? You can't. It's very hard to do, and you're not going to really be able to do it. I wouldn't try it on a small scale. Now, an enormous fund, an enormous bank or financial institution, they can take the potential unemployment rates, and they have PhDs who are creating models, sophisticated models for how things will change depending on how things change in the real world, right? And they even are trying to create models for like how will things change if the world gets hotter by 1 degree. How will things change if there's a hurricane? How will things change if there's certain political unrest? How will things change if precious metals go up or down? Very, very minor things. Corn prices, commodities prices, copper prices, oil prices. So they're doing that. You don't have to do it to that level of sophistication. You could do a basic stress test, and you could just look at your overall portfolio, and you could see, you could say, what if everything drops by 50%, right? So say you have a balance sheet, and you have $100,000 in assets, and you have $50,000 in debt. Maybe that's credit card debt, a small personal loan, who knows what it is, a car loan. $50,000 in debt, and $100,000 in assets. You're sitting there being happy, saying, "Wow, I feel great. I have $50,000 net worth." Now stress test that. Now go one by one on each of your assets. So cash. Let's start with cash. Cash is not going to drop in a negative scenario, right? Cash is going to stay cash. So that in the quote unquote stressed, that basic stressed scenario, it'll be still 100%. So it'll be 100%. So you have 100%, you multiply 100% by the cash amount in your Excel file, and you come up with that same amount. Obviously, right? If you know math, it should be basic. If it's 100%, then you have your full amount. Now, for stocks, you could just say, I'm going to take a flat discount. I'm going to take a flat discount of 50%, let's say. A very severe, intense drop, but not an implausible drop. Not a ridiculous drop. A drop that we've seen in the broad markets, right? I'm not saying 99% drop. I'm saying 50%. Very reasonable drop. You can expect in your life that you'll have one or two 50% drops in equities. That's not something to think that'll never happen. That'll happen to you. So for all your equities, you say, okay, everything drops by 50%, so you take a 50% discount. You multiply 0.5 by each of your equity balances, and then you basically get your post-stress balance, right? Which is going to be half the previous balance. Say you have 25K in E-Trade, you're now, in your scenario, you're only going to have 12.5K. You're saying that once shit hits the fan, once the stress scenario comes upon us, this is my balance sheet now. Not this new balance sheet, this post-stress balance sheet, where I'm going to apply weights to every single one of my assets in the appropriate, prudent, rational way. So for cash, the weight will be 100%. For equities, you choose, but I'm just giving an example of 50%. Precious metals, okay, crypto, maybe take 75%, maybe 80% off the top. So if you have 10K in crypto, you take 80% off the top, you're gonna have 2K. And you apply that weight across your entire set of assets. For liabilities, unfortunately, there's no such thing. It's gonna be 100% all the way. Just because you're in a stress scenario doesn't mean you own any less. And when you do the exercise, you'll see how fucked up things can be. Your $100,000 in assets and your 50,000 in liabilities could potentially become 50,000 in assets and 50,000 in liabilities post stress in your stress scenario, because you've discounted all your volatile positions, all the positions that are exposed to market risk. So what happens then? 50-50, zero net worth. Sorry. Now you have a zero net worth. Now let's say the stressed scenario made you have, maybe you were just so exposed to crypto, so exposed to equities, and now you just have 25K. You have, in this stress scenario, this terrible scenario that we hope doesn't happen, does not come to fruition. We don't want it. But just in case it does, we want to see where we'd be. So in this scenario, you have a lot of crypto, you have a lot of equities, not a lot of cash, which has that 100% rate, or effectively a 0% discount rate. You don't have that. You don't have much cash to buffer you. Most of it is in volatile assets like crypto, let's say, and stocks. And so you have 25% assets post stress. 25% assets, 50% liabilities. Well, you're fucked, dude. You have a negative 25% net worth in that scenario. That's not good. Today you're sitting feeling happy, feeling great, saying, "Yay, I have 50,000 bucks." But tomorrow you can have negative 25,000 bucks if you don't stress test your portfolio and understand how bad things could possibly be, right? You got to stress test your portfolio. You got to take advice from the big boys, and you have to apply it to your own life. That's the way to do it.